Welcome to a lesson that belongs to the Test with Spring course. The title of this lesson is Writing Assertions with Spock Framework, and this lesson has 3 goals. After we have finished this lesson, we know how we can add conditions to our feature methods. We can write assertions for the exceptions thrown by the system under specification, and we know how we can use Hamcrest matches. Let's start by finding out how we can write assertions with Spock framework. One difference between Spock framework and JUnit is that Spock framework doesn't provide an assertion API. Instead, we can specify the expected state by using conditions. We can write conditions by following these rules. 1. We have to specify the expected state in the then or expect block. 2. We can create conditions by using Boolean expressions. To be more specific, we can use any expression and Groovy decides whether our expression is true or false. 3. If our condition is true, our test will pass. And 4. If our condition is false, our test will fail. If we want to specify conditions outside of the then and expect blocks, we have to use the assert keyword. We can now create conditions with Spock framework. Before we will put our new skills into practice, we will take a look at 2 rules which help us to write feature methods that are easy to read. 1. We should add the most important conditions to the beginning of the then or expect block and provide a good description to these conditions. And 2. If our conditions belong to different logical groups, we should divide our then or expect block into different sections by using the AND label. When we do this, we must provide a good description to the created sections. Next, we will find out how we can add new conditions to the then and expect blocks. As we know, we can write assertions by adding new conditions to the then or expect block of our feature method. Let's take a look at 2 examples that demonstrate how we can add conditions to our feature methods. First, let's write 2 conditions which verify that our feature method creates an empty list. We can do this by adding a then block to our feature method and adding our conditions to that block. By the way, we don't need both of these conditions. I used these conditions here because I wanted to demonstrate that we can use the return value of a method as a condition or specify the condition by using logical operators. Second, let's verify that the max method of the math class returns the greater of 2 numbers. We can do this by adding a new expect block to our feature method and adding our condition to that block. Let's move on and find out how we can write assertions for the exceptions thrown by the system under specification. When we want to verify that the when block of our feature method throws an exception, we have to use exception conditions. Next, we will take a look at 3 examples which demonstrate how we can write assertions for the exceptions thrown by the system under specification. First, if we want to verify that the when block of our feature method throws a specific exception, we have to use the thrown method and pass the type of the expected exception as a method parameter. Let's write a condition which verifies that the stack class throws the empty stack exception if we try to pop an empty stack. Second, if we want to verify that the when block of our feature method doesn't throw a specific exception, we have to use the not thrown method and pass the type of the exception as a method parameter. Let's write a condition which verifies that the stack class doesn't throw the empty stack exception if we try to pop a stack that has one item. Third, sometimes we want to write additional assertions for the thrown exception, or we want to verify that the state of the system under specification is correct. Spock framework supports both use cases because exception conditions can be followed by other conditions and other blocks. Let's ensure that our when block throws a runtime exception that has the correct message. We can write the required conditions by following these steps. 1. Verify that our when block throws a runtime exception and get a reference to the thrown exception object. And 2. Ensure that the thrown exception has the correct message. Next, we will find out how we can use Hamcrest matches. Spock framework allows us to specify conditions by using Hamcrest matches. This is a good thing because it helps us to write conditions that are easy to read, write and maintain. When we want to write conditions by using a Hamcrest match, we have to use this format. Let's verify that our feature method creates a list that has one item. We can write the required conditions by following these steps. 1. Verify that the created list has one item. And 2. Ensure that the created list contains the correct item. We can now add conditions to our feature methods, write assertions for the thrown exceptions, and specify conditions by using Hamcrest matches. Let's summarize what we learned from this lesson. This lesson has taught us that 1. We should specify our conditions by using Boolean expressions in the then or expect block. 2. We should add the most important conditions to the beginning of the then or expect block. 3. If our conditions belong to different logical groups, We should divide our block into different sections by using the AND label. 4. Exception conditions can be followed by other conditions and other blocks. And 5. If we want to use Hamcrest matches, we have to specify our conditions by using the format object or value space match. That's all for now. Thank you for watching.